What's up, New Hope family? Welcome to episode 6 of the show with no name. My name is David. With me, as always, is Pastor Leo. Hello, Pastor Leo.
Kamusta, everyone?
Show number 6, but really like number 30-ish.
Yes.
Probably. Close to 30, but actually 6. It's let's not dive back into the confusion of the two podcasts. If you haven't been with us for a long time, you can always go back to the Grow podcast to catch up on those. I definitely won't get all those podcasts migrated over until after Christmas. It's just not going to happen at this point. So I'm sorry that it's difficult for you to go find some of the old ones right now. But we are going through our study on the book of Romans. And I pledged last week that this week shall be the last time I ask for suggestions for the next book that you would like us to study. So it's the first episode of 2024. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
What's your favorite part of 2024 so far, Leo?
The numbers.
Yeah, that's usually mine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so jump in the comments. Let us know which book of the Bible, to clarify, you would like us to study next. Not just like your favorite novel.
Wait. It's already the 3rd, so the kids have gone back to school.
Is that when they start school again?
The 2nd, I believe.
So that's your favorite part of the new
That's
year.
my favorite part.
Are you a big...
The sound of silence.
Are you... Hello, darkness, my old friend. Are you a big New Year's guy? Is New Year's a big deal in the
Philippines?
Monteroyo household?
Yes.
Well, you're no longer in the Philippines.
I know. So that's one of the reasons why it's a little bit more lonely.
Okay.
Celebrating the New Year here, because the New Year celebration in the Philippines is more like the 4th of July here. Fireworks all around.
I mean, there'll be some fire. You're in Williston.
Right.
There will be some fireworks.
There will be
There
some.
are fireworks on like a random Tuesday in October, so there'll be some, but not on the scale, I'm sure, that you're talking about. Okay.
So yeah, that's how we celebrate the New Year back home. So I know for the Filipinos who are watching, especially if you're here in the U.S., whether or not you're in Williston, I know it's a little bit quieter compared to when we celebrated back home, but a Happy New Year. That's still an awesome thing that we are now in 2024.
Sure. I don't know. I've never, like, even when I was younger and less cynical than I am now, still some, but not as much. I've just never understood.
I'm going to do a Chandler Bing. Can
please.
you be more cynical?
Yes, I could. I'm holding back. No, I just don't get it. It's like, at some point in history, we arbitrarily decided what the first day of the like, obviously a year has a reason for it, right? It's one time that the earth revolves, but there's no like start point in a circle around the sun. We just decided this will be the first day, and then every year we're gonna celebrate. And I just don't get it. I've never understood it. Like, nothing's different. I mean, again, I'm like, I don't even get excited for my birthday. I'm like, I don't know, 36 feels the same as 35. Everybody, I don't really get the difference.
Oh, try 45.
But maybe then I'll get it. But I think when I turned 18 and I could vote finally, I was like, yeah, that's about it. That's kind of the last one I'm excited about. But I've just never understood the new year.
16 too, and you get to drive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. All of my friends in high school were older than me, and I didn't have a car. So I was like, nothing changes at 16. I still just ride everywhere with my friends. So, it's just, I don't know. I hope everybody that loves the new year had such a great time. I probably was in bed or just like watching a movie. I think last year, Joanne and I were both asleep before midnight. And I'm not even usually asleep before midnight on a normal day.
Right. It
was out of protest, I think. I was like, I will fall asleep before New Year's.
Well, one of the people who go to New Hope, to PH, Lou, the one who makes those awesome cakes.
Shout out, Lou.
Is in the Philippines right now, so I'm sure she's had a great New Year.
Now, I'm assuming they hit New Year's way before we do.
After.
They're after us.
Oh, wait. No, they're before.
Yeah, because
right.
You know, because they'd be in like the same area where I'm from in Australia, which hits it way before us. So they beat us to it. Maybe it's more exciting over there. Maybe it's the Australian in me, you know, like I was born in Australia, so my body knows by the time it hits New Year's here in the Central Time Zone, it's like old news. Like we're 17 hours late. Like who cares? Maybe that's why I don't care. Maybe if we went and hung out in the Philippines or in Sydney, I would love it again. That's okay. Maybe I need, because you said it doesn't excite you as much over here.
No.
I'm going to clear my throat for a second away from the mic.
Maybe we need to have an episode where we're in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Hint.
Send your donations in to the Grow Podcast to fly me and Leo and our equipment to the Philippines. That's probably a terrible use of your money. You probably shouldn't do that, but I'd love it if you did. My voice is really struggling, Leo.
Oh boy.
You need to vamp again.
It's not
like last week.
There's a reason for it. It's because you're not drinking the V8 anymore. The V8 is the one that allowed you to have a great podcast voice, but not that one. What's that one? Oh, it's the.
That's some.
How do you say that, by the way?
LaCroix.
LaCroix.
Yep.
Okay. Isn't it LaCroix?
No, it's LaCroix.
Oh, okay.
I don't care how the French say it. I'm not French. In Minnesota, we have... First of all, thank you for the compliment on my voice. Mm-hmm. It's apparently not going to be good today. I don't think it's good any day. I was walking down the hallway the other day. I don't edit the podcast, so I just have to listen to my own voice. And Pastor Mark had, I don't know if it was Show With No Name or Grow Podcast on. I just hear my voice as I walk down the hallway. I'm like, it's awful. I'm so sorry, everybody.
But that's the thing.
I don't like listening to myself.
Like, even in my case, when I listen to myself, it's more cringe than anything.
This is where everyone's going to jump in the comments and be like, no, we get it. Like, we also don't like it.
Right.
Good thing the content's so good. Otherwise, no one would be here.
Speaking of content.
Yeah, let's get to Romans.
Segue.
I'm too distracted by my beach plum LaCroix. Because so we have the St. Croix River where I'm from in Minnesota, where I grew up in Minnesota, and then this is always called LaCroix. But I don't know how you would say it in French.
What,
but,
that one? It's LaCroix.
Are you sure though? Because they lost a whole bunch of wars.
Oh, that's so true.
So like we get to say it however we want. When we save you during World War I and II, we get to rename stuff. I think that's the American way. We do that with everything. Like in the English language, like, oh, you're from Deutschland? Yeah, we're going to call it Germany now. Yeah, no, we don't want to say that. That's too long. We're calling it Germany. Like, oh,
plus
all
the
right.
spelling too.
Yeah.
So Germany is it.
We, hang out in the Philippines. We're like, yeah, you guys are going to speak English now. Congratulations.
That is true. That is what happened.
I know. That's our way. Oh, man. But sometimes it's a good thing, like LaCroix. That sounds better than LaCroix. Yeah, not interested in that. All right, let's jump into Romans. We started in Romans. There's a very short chapter of the book of Romans. Again, I'm convinced, as we talked about last week, like some Roman soldiers bust in while he was writing, not roding. And he just quickly was like, I was going to get to the government part, but we'll do it now real quick. And then they left, and he's like, all right, I'm moving back on to other stuff. Yeah. And it's just such a short chapter.
It reminds me of a video that I saw. Like, there was a guy in a classroom. They had a test, and he turned his paper in late because he was doing something. And then the teacher says, you can't submit that anymore because you're late. And then he says, do you know who I am? And then the teacher says no. And then he sticks his paper in the middle of the page. Good. And then he leaves. So I think that's what Paul did. It's like,
that's fantastic.
Find a way to stick it in there. Let's see.
That's
here's good.
If you happen to be in college and you're at a big university with like 600 kids in the class, maybe take a note of that. That's pretty brilliant. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so we're verses 8 through 14. If you haven't read them yet, just go read them quick. Maybe read them twice, real quick, just so you're not hearing it for the first time. And we don't usually just read like all the verses we're talking about. We have some sort of assumption that you've read. So go read those quick. By the way, make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. If you are a listener on audio formats like on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, make sure you subscribe. We would love it if you gave a review on those, it makes it way easier for people to find. Same thing on YouTube. If you leave comments, if you like the video, I would love it if you liked this video. Let's see if we can get 50 likes on one of our podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Challenge.
Yeah. Just make a bunch of fake accounts and like it all. But no, when you like it, when you comment, when you leave reviews, it makes things way easier for people to find. But I encourage you to subscribe so that you get notified when new episodes go live. You usually have to go into your phone, into the settings, and turn them on.
Hit that bell.
Ooh, yeah, hit that bell. So yeah, make sure you subscribe. All right, we're gonna finally jump in here, Leo. Yeah. Romans 13 verses 8 through 14. Give us our summary, please.
Okay, so this is a one-liner summary.
Another quick
I couldn't
summary.
go on anything. So it's these verses are just a continuation of Paul's talk about our submission to the government.
Cool.
Period.
Yeah, but we get to talk about the law a little bit this time.
Oh, yes.
That's kind of nice. So last week you said there were four. I forget how you worded it. 4 reasons why we can't just do whatever we want.
Right.
Why truth isn't subjective, and I just get to live my own truth. And we only got to 2 of them.
Yes.
Because there were more verses in this chapter.
Yes.
So we're going to get to the other 2 today. Do you want to review the first 2?
Yes.
From last week? Okay, review those first 2 from
All
last
right,
week.
very quickly, the first reason is verses 1 to 4. It is God who has established the government of the world. Second reason is verses 5 to 7. We ought to obey because of our conscience. Again, that's the caveat. As influenced by the Holy Spirit and the Bible.
Yeah. I feel like we'll get to the third reason in a second. I just feel like 8 through 14 are just a little more palatable because he doesn't really use the word government a whole bunch.
The soldiers have learned.
Yeah, he doesn't say it. Just like if I'm somebody that really finds this to be a difficult thing, especially like what we talked about last week, he's still talking about the same stuff in these second verses, but nowhere is the phrase subject to your government. It's just like it's a little more palatable, even though we're talking about the same thing. But it does not negate the truth in the first 7 verses that we talked about last week.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so why don't you give us the third reason here,
All right.
Mr. Leo?
So the third reason is for love's sake. Again, my call. We need In the Name of Love by Bono.
Why don't you just sing it for us real quick?
In the name of love. It's so high.
It is very high. I'd love to listen to that in the Sphere in Vegas. Have you seen the videos of that place?
Yes, that is.
It's insane.
It is.
And that's like U2 is, I think, still there. They're like the only band that's been, a residency or whatever they've had there since it opened. I've heard it's just
the first time I
ever.
saw it, I felt really bad because back then, in 2013, first got here, I was in Bullhead City in Arizona. And I was like just an hour and a half away from Vegas. And it wasn't there yet.
No.
I missed it.
Yeah, that Sphere is crazy.
Missed it by a few years.
So just pretend that you were in the Sphere when Leo was singing. But, all right, so for love's sake is the third reason.
So yes, Paul enlarged our circle of responsibility beyond our just government officials by including, spoiler alert, everyone.
Oh.
Yay, we need to love everyone. Because love one another is the basic principle of the Christian life. If that's surprising to you,
then you might need to go listen to some more podcast episodes.
Right.
Go to episode 1 of the Grow podcast and just go all the way through to now.
Binge on that one.
Yep.
But yeah, it is the basic principle of the Christian life.
Yeah.
It is the new commandment that Jesus gave us in John 13.
I think it's interesting because I was saying it's more palatable, which it is. Like the language is more palatable.
Yeah.
And yet that's way harder than what he said in the first one. Because I might not like my government. I also don't like people who do like the government that I don't like. And I don't like this guy over here. And I don't like my neighbor who thinks that part of my yard is part of his yard. And this neighbor who borrows stuff and doesn't give it back.
Right.
And Leo who makes me eat avocados and wants me to eat eggs with formed birds inside of them.
And now we got sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Coming soon.
This became difficult all of a sudden.
That's so true. But when we practice love, there is no need for any other laws because love covers it all. Mm-hmm. If we love others, we will not sin against them. So our motive for obeying God helping others, and obeying the law established by the government is the love of Jesus in our hearts. So Paul has centered on the very heart of the problem, the human heart. Remember the first question from last week? Why is it so hard? Well, this is the answer. The government sucks because of the human heart. Yay. So
I just think someone is going to cut out where you just said the government sucks and then paused, and they're just going to have that clip of you saying that, and we're just going to post that on the internet.
And that's going to be
look at this pastor from
Right.
North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the reason we're going to revolt.
yeah.
So,
Oh boy.
But yeah, okay, so the government sucks because of the human heart. We rebel not just against the government, because
Yeah.
of the human heart. We make questionable laws and decisions because of the human heart. And again, because the heart of humankind is sinful, and that's the reason why God established the government. But laws cannot change the heart. It can only be changed by the grace of God. So that's the third reason, for love's sake.
All right, give us the fourth reason now.
And the fourth reason is not just for love's sake, submit to the government for Jesus' sake. That's verses 11 to 14 of this chapter. So let's review it real quick. Reasons for obeying the law, reasons for obeying the government. Fear of God is number one. He's the one who established the governments of the world. Second is your conscience. Third is our love for one another. And the fourth one is because of our devotion to Jesus. It is for His sake that we obey. So as His servants, we want to be found faithful when He returns. So notice, our motivation is never external. They are all internal. That's why we reviewed it just now. It is all internal. We talked about internal and external motivations in episode 4. So if you want to listen to that of this podcast, so go back and listen to it. So we obey not because we're forced to, but because we have been changed and are being led by the Holy Spirit.
So I think these are the kind of teachings that become difficult sometimes and misunderstood and cause us to think that our actions are what save us.
Yeah.
You know, as Paul, Paul's talking about all the, like, let's not do these things. Let's do these things. So, you just said we obey not because we're forced to, but because we've been changed. But these are the types of verses and passages that usually lead people to saying, excuse me, like, okay, these actions are necessary for, like, that. Doing those things and not doing those things are what save you.
Right.
And Paul's talking about all these things that we should do if we're Christians.
Well, Paul is saying that our love for our neighbor is revealed in what we do rather than in what we say.
Sometimes I don't like that
I know.
reality.
I know. Me too.
Yeah.
But Paul is not putting us Christians back under the law. If that's what you're thinking, no, he's not. He's not putting us back under the law. What Paul is saying is that our love for our neighbor and for God is shown by us not committing adultery, by not killing, or not stealing, or not coveting, and all of those other stuff. So we can talk about love as much as we want to, but if we still commit these acts against our neighbor, then it only goes to show that we really have no love for said neighbor. So loving our neighbor really is the fullness and the fulfillment of the law. This love is the fruit of the Spirit. And if you have spiritual fruits, then you most definitely have the Holy Spirit in you. If the Holy Spirit you have, then a Christian you are.
Thank you, Yoda. You just could. It's been like 15 episodes since you did a Yoda impression, and you just
I needed to.
I think
He needed to come out.
when we talk about our neighbor, like, especially in the context of the government, like, your neighbor is that politician,
Yes.
that you're harboring hate against.
But he's not my neighbor.
Yeah.
He lives far
Yeah,
away
exactly.
from me.
Your neighbor is that person at work who is in a different political party than you,
Yes.
or has very strong different opinions than you about the government. About, like, that's who your neighbor is. How are you loving that person? It's really, really easy to love your neighbor who has the same political signs out in their front yard, and everything you believe lines up with everything they believe, and you attend the same church. Or,
Right.
That it's not hard to love that person.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to love that person who's on the opposite ends of things from you. And,
Oh, yeah.
And certainly there's no accident that he's bringing up love and love for our neighbor right as he's talking about government stuff. Like that Emperor Claudius, who just kicked you out of Rome, early church Christians, is your neighbor. Are you going to love him or not? That's tough.
That's tough.
Yeah, that one's not fun. Like, whether you like the current president of the United States or the last president of the United States or neither of them, they're your neighbor. Like,
Yes.
How are you loving them? And
Yes.
that's difficult. But if we have the Holy Spirit, that's what's going to come out. Like, that's going to be the fruit of the Spirit. All right, verse 11. Verse 12. I apologize. So I want to bring us back to the fake scenario that I made up of Paul writing this chapter. So the Roman soldiers bust in. So he's like, all right, we were going to do the government part at the end, but we'll do it now because they're going to get mad otherwise. So he does the government part. And then they leave, and then we get to verse 12, and he's like, hey, I just want to let you guys know it's morning time now. Like, what are we doing? Like, oh, the sun is rising. I should let everyone know for eternity reading this what time it is.
It's morning time.
Or is there something else in this analogy of day turning into...
No, that's just it.
Or, night turning into day. Oh, that was it? All right, let's move on. I have another question. Let me get to my next one.
Yeah, it's... Paul gave several commands to us Christians. When we're talking about this, like loving our neighbor and all of that, Paul gives us several commands. The first one is, it's morning time, so wake up. Right? That's verses 11 to 12. Yep. It's just, he just happened to look out the window and think, ooh, morning. I gotta remind myself, so he wrote that down. Forgot to erase it. But it's wake up. That's his first command. Paul wants to awaken believers, and this still applies today, who have become too comfortable and have gone to sleep in the world. So if you're a Christian and you find that you're in a very comfortable and convenient place in your Christianity, so much so that you are pushing back against God when he starts taking you out of your so cozy and so comfy comfort zone, you probably need to wake up. Yeah, and it's not just Paul. This is us telling you to. You probably need to wake up. We talked about this before. How are we spending our T's, our times, our talents, and our treasure? And are we using our T's for God?
Yeah, and he, in verse 11 at the end where he says, for salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. You know, it's like, hey, like you're almost like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
Like, and in a good way, right? Like salvation is what we're looking for.
Right.
But like, you should be like moving further in your relationship with God.
That's right.
As you get closer to that salvation. Now, he's obviously not saying, well, you're not saved currently, and like yes, you're saved now. When he says salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed, it's like we're getting closer to that time when we're going to go be with him forever.
That's right.
What are you doing with the time you have? Because the time you have when you started this podcast was more than the time you have now halfway through the podcast. Like it's getting closer, and we got stuff to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, this is a week after Christmas, more or less, right? But if it's 7:00 in the evening on December 24th and you still haven't started cooking your Christmas dinner, it's like, what are you doing with your time? Right? But
the time of Christmas is nearer to now than when you first thought about Christmas.
So it's the same thing. So wake up.
Yeah.
So the second one, not just wake up, clean up. That's verse 13. So as in clean up your life. And that's the same thing. Since salvation is closer to you now, you got to start cleaning up. So Paul is telling us to walk honestly, the way people do in the daytime. And I think it's not a coincidence that we hear a great deal about the nightlife, quote unquote, right? It's like there's even a song about that. I love the nightlife. I love to boogie.
I don't know that one. But the fact that you used the word boogie in it leads me to believe it's from a long time ago.
It's from a long time ago. But we talk. There's a great deal about the nightlife. Mm-hmm. So us believers, us Christians, ought to be identified more with day life, not nightlife. Mm-hmm. So we do not want to be found dressed in dirty garments when the Lord returns. That's 1 John chapter 2 verses 28 until chapter 3 verse 3. We Christians wear the armor of light, not the works of the darkness. We have no reason to get involved in the sinful pleasures of the world, especially since salvation is closer now than before. Mm. And then the third command from Paul in verse 14 is grow up, please. So it's to put on or to clothe ourselves with Jesus means to become more like him. Mm-hmm. We become what we eat. Didn't you know that? So we become what we eat. This is why God warns us. If we feed the flesh, we will fail. But if we feed the inner being, the things of the Spirit, we will succeed. Yeah. So in other words, a Christian, a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, ergo us, ought to be the best citizen in this world and in the next. I know it's tough, but we need to be the best citizens in this world and in the next. Citizens may not agree. Christians may not agree on politics or parties, but they can all agree on their attitude toward the human government and your neighbors too. Yeah, we talked about that just now.
For sure. All right, we finished up the chapter, so you've got a head change, heart change, and life change for us before we get to our questions.
So here's your head change. Know that government is God's instrument for punishing the bad and promoting the good. Mm-hmm. You may not agree with it sometimes, or most of the time, but it is still God's instrument for punishing the bad and promoting the good. Your heart change is submit to the governing authority. I know it's hard. It's hard. Submit to the governing authorities as long as it doesn't require disobedience to God's commands. We talked about that last episode.
I feel like often when we think about that one, right? Okay, submit to the governing authorities as long as it doesn't require disobedience to God's commands. So, I'm not gonna illegally own firearms, and I'm not gonna steal, and I'm not gonna, cheat on my taxes. Mm-hmm. But there's like little like how many of us speed?
Not me.
No, but like if you think about it, if I'm driving 45 in a 40, I am not in that moment submitting to the governing authorities.
That's right.
And I hate to think that every time I drive 43 in a 40, I'm sinning because I'm disobeying my call to submit to the governing authorities as long as it doesn't require disobedience to God's commands. But I kind of am. Like we need to submit in all of those areas. Any area of where the governing authorities have control, again, as long as it doesn't require disobedience to God's commands. That's right. So like you might, don't get real high and mighty right now because you're like, I'm not doing any of those big bad things wrong. Like, what about the little things?
That's so true.
That's
so true. I mean, I remember talking about this in PH. Like, isn't it funny that when we do that, we tend to not compare ourselves to people who are of a higher standard. Like I'm not like this saintly person. Mm-hmm. It's always we compare ourselves to someone who we think is lower than us. It's like I'm not as good as this one, so I better shape up. We don't say that most of the time. We just always like, look at this guy. He was driving 75 at a 40, so
I'm better than him.
Right. So it's that's why we have that. Like, wake up, clean up, and please grow up.
Or what's our life change?
All right, so the life change is live as an exemplar. Oh, this is tough. Live as an exemplary citizen, as an act of obedience to God. Yeah. And that's why we talked about it. It's tough. Yeah. It is tough, but that is the command. Live as an exemplary citizen as an obedience to God. Mm-hmm. So here are your questions for this week. Why do you think it is essential to be godly in these last days? That's tough. All right. Here's your second question. When wrongs are done to us, what does the Bible say is the proper response? A lot of people are going to say,
punch them in the face, obviously. Yeah. Just to clarify, what does the Bible say is the proper response was the question.
What does the Bible say is the proper response? Why is this so difficult? And then number 3, how can love make you a more exemplary citizen and a better neighbor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. And then next step, we're going to be in Romans 14.
Romans 14. Again, no more submissions.
Well, this is your last chance.
Yep, your last chance.
So right now, you've made it all the way through. What is this, episode 6 of
so far we got judges.
Yeah, and again, we're recording this in advance, so we may have some other suggestions by the time this airs. But leave us your suggestions on what book you want us to study next. What do we have? Three chapters left.
3 chapters left.
3 chapters left. So we're probably going to decide on what's next pretty quick here. So leave us those suggestions. We would love to hear what you would like us to study, what you'd like Pastor Leo to be teaching on. And just thank you for being here. I really hope you had an amazing Christmas, a great New Year. Apparently, if it's a big deal in the Philippines. We have a Filipino restaurant in town. Are they going to do anything crazy on New Year's Eve? Do you know?
They're going to shoot fireworks inside the restaurant?
Inside the restaurant. You can quote Leo on that. I'm guessing Jen and Max disagree, but I'm going to need to find that out now, because maybe that will get me excited about New Year's again.
Yeah,
if I go hang out with some Filipino people.
It's going to be an exciting time if they do that inside.
Well, I will not be there if they're firing fireworks inside.
There will be lots of flashing lights involved.
Yeah, both inside and the response will be, yeah. But yeah, I hope you had a wonderful New Year's. You're starting off the new year well. Happy birthday to Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael.
It was just Michael's birthday. We joked last year a lot on our online campus that we no longer make New Year's resolutions. We make Michael's birthday resolutions.
Ooh.
Which is the next day. So that's how we're different. So I hope your Michael's birthday resolutions are going well one day in so far.
Speaking of which, we're kicking off a new series on January the 14th.
At Promised Hope.
At Promised Hope. It's all about habits.
Nice.
Speaking of resolutions.
Yeah, you'll have to have Michael come over and talk about Michael's birthday resolutions.
Yeah.
Yep, and a new series at New Hope is starting as well. So whether you're attending PH Church or you're attending New Hope, make sure you're joining us on the weekends. Check out the Grow podcast as well with Pastor Mark, which is a really great podcast. And then come back with us next time as we jump into Romans 14. Thank you, Pastor Leo,
You're welcome.
for your wisdom and your teaching. Thanks to all of you. We love you, New Hope family, and we will see you next time.
Happy New Year. Ingat.